Manchester City's past FA Cup finals. A repeat of last season's All-Manchester FA Cup final takes centre stage at Wembley Stadium on Saturday afternoon when holders Manchester City do battle with rivals Manchester United. The citizens will travel to the capital in buoyant mood after clinching a record fourth successive Premier League title last weekend courtesy of a 3-1 victory over West Ham United at the Etihad Stadium in their final league fixture of the season. Pep Guardiola's men are now bidding to create further history as no team in English football has ever won the league title and FA Cup in consecutive campaigns. Ahead of Saturday's eagerly anticipated showpiece, Sports Mole takes a look at Man City's previous appearances in the FA Cup final. 1904 Manchester City 1-0 Bolton Wanderers. Man City had never previously progressed past the second round of the FA Cup before they reached the final for the first time in 1904. And a first-half goal from local legend Billy Meredith was enough to secure a slender 1-0 win over Bolton Wanderers at London's Crystal Palace, 19 years before Wembley Stadium was built. 1926 Bolton Wanderers 1-0 Manchester City. Man City and Bolton would meet again 22 years later for just the fourth FA Cup final to be held at Wembley. The citizens could not breach a solid Trotters backline, though, and David Jack eventually settled the tight contest when he slid home the only goal 14 minutes from time. 1933 Everton 3-0 Manchester City. The 1933 FA Cup final was the first in the competition's history where both teams wore numbers 1-22 on the back of their shirts. Sir Matt Busby, who would later go on to become a managerial icon at Manchester United, played in midfield for Man City, but they were beaten by a clinical Everton outfit, who had club legend Dixie Dean on the scoresheet. 1934 Manchester City 2-1 Portsmouth. Man City bounced back a year later and claimed their second FA Cup trophy, their first cup triumph at Wembley, when they came from behind at half-time to beat Portsmouth 2-1 thanks to two late goals from Fred Tilson. 1955 Newcastle United 3-1 Manchester City. Man City beat Man United en route to the 1955 FA Cup final, but they came up short against Newcastle United and played the majority of the match with 10 men after Jimmy Meadows sustained a serious leg injury, which eventually forced him to retire aged just 24. Citizens forward Bobby Johnstone cancelled out Jackie Milburn's first-minute opener, but the Magpies regained their lead through Bobby Mitchell shortly after the break, before George Hannah sealed the victory 7 minutes later. 1956 Manchester City 3-1 Birmingham City. Man City returned to Wembley a year later and secured a 3-1 victory over Birmingham City in what was dubbed the Trotman Final after the heroics of Citizens goalkeeper Bert Trotman, who played the final 17 minutes with a broken bone in his neck. Trotman, whose journey from a German prisoner of war to an English football legend is admired across the country, stood firm between the sticks as goals from Joe Hayes, Jack Dyson and Bobby Johnstone helped City win their third FA Cup. 1969 Leicester City 0-1 Manchester City. A year after winning the top-flight title and a year before winning the European Cup Winners' Cup under manager Joe Mercer, Man City overcame Leicester City 1-0 to win the 1969 FA Cup final courtesy of a first-half goal from Neil Young fired past a 19-year-old Peter Shilton. 1981 Tottenham 3-2 Manchester City replay. Following a 1-1 draw in the first match, Tottenham Hotspur and Man City butted heads 5 days later for an FA Cup final replay, the first of 3 in the competition at the start of the 1980s. The citizens were leading 2-1 thanks to goals from Stephen McKenzie and Kevin Reeves, but Spurs turned the game on its head with 2 strikes in 6 minutes from Ricardo Villa and Garth Crooks to come out on top. 2013 Manchester City 0-1 Wigan Athletic. 32 years then passed before Man City reached their next FA Cup final in 2013 when they were firm favourites to beat Wigan Athletic, who were relegated from the Premier League. However, a below-par City side were stunned by a dramatic 91st-minute header from Ben Watson. Roberto Mancini was sacked by the citizens just a few days later. a year on from winning the club's first Premier League title. 2019 Manchester City 6-0 Watford. Man City celebrated their 6th FA Cup triumph and first under Pep Guardiola when they trashed Watford 6-0 in the 2019 final, the joint biggest win in an FA Cup showpiece in the competition's history that matches Barry's win over Derby County back in 1903. Goals from Gabriel Jesus 2, Raheem Sterling 2, David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne helped City cruise to victory and become the first ever English team to complete the domestic quadruple, having also won the Premier League, EFL Cup and Community Shield in the same season. 2023 Manchester City 2-1 Manchester United. The 142nd FA Cup final was the first all-Manchester derby affair, which began with the fastest goal ever in the competition's final by Man City captain Ilkay Gundogan, who smacked a sensational volley past David De Gea from the edge of the penalty area. Bruno Fernandes restored parity for Man United from the penalty spot midway through the first half. But it was Gundogan who fired Man City to glory. His bouncing volley found its way into the bottom corner 6 minutes after the break, and the citizens would hold on to claim one of 3 trophies as part of a historic treble. Thanks for your watching. Don't forget to click the subscribed button and hit the bell icon for more.